So you've made the decision to move to Arkansas, and the thought of relocating across state lines or maybe even across the country has you a little bit apprehensive, and you're wondering maybe if there was just a checklist of things that I could go over to make sure that I'm not missing anything when I relocate to Arkansas. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on each and every one, but I am going to cover them very quickly, so stick with me all the way through the end, and I guarantee you're going to very much appreciate what I have tailor-made for you in this video. My friend, if we haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Anthony Mosley. I'm a real estate broker here in Northwest Arkansas. Of course, we're talking about moving to the state of Arkansas. If you're just now finding the channel, or maybe you've been watching for a few months now, you know that most of my content, or you should know that most of my content is about Northwest Arkansas, and I'm helping people just like you after presenting them the facts. Is Northwest Arkansas going to be the next best place for you and your family to move or not move? Let's go ahead and dig right in on the first topic, which is clarifying your motivation and your time frame. My clients that are moving here to Arkansas often fall into a few different buckets. They're looking for a lifestyle upgrade. They're looking to maybe lower their taxes or take advantage of a lower cost of living. They want something retirement friendly or even a lower pace of life. Either way, most everybody wants to move away from pain and towards pleasure. So inside of clarifying your motivation is understanding the type of lifestyle that you want to live when moving here to Arkansas. I help people move here all the time, and that's one of my favorite questions to ask them is, what's the lifestyle you want to leave back here in wherever you're moving from, and what's the lifestyle you want to enjoy here in Arkansas? That may help determine where we find you a home. Then deciding on your ideal time frame might have something to do with, do you need to sell a property first in order to purchase a home here in Arkansas? But as you're going through this process and you're trying to decide which broker to choose for your real estate transaction, if it's me, make sure that I'm in communication with whoever your broker is, wherever you're selling. That way we can make sure our timelines and contracts more so line up for you, so it's a smoother transition. Along with clarifying your time frame and your motivation is when you're moving here, it's not uncommon for many of my clients to decide, hey, you know what, let's rent for 6 months or maybe a year before we decide on where we want to live. That way we can learn, are we by the best trails that we like to ride? Are we by our place of worship? Are we close to the hospitals or restaurants or shopping or entertainment that we want to be close by? And if we're not, that way when the time does come to purchase, you've already figured out just about where your life is going to be. And so now you can determine where you want to live in Arkansas, which is our second topic, is deciding where you want to live. Do you want to live in the northwest corner where I am, up here where we're at the southern tip of the Ozark Mountains? We got mountain biking, lakes galore. The whole entire state is the natural state. There's hiking, camping, rivers, streams, golf, all different sorts of activities all over the great state of Arkansas. You just have to determine, based on maybe your employer, based on maybe your proximity to airports or hospitals or shopping, just like we mentioned earlier, where in the state you want to live. A lot of my clients, and maybe just like you're trying to figure out, have narrowed it down from, we're not going to Florida, we're not going to Tennessee, we're not going to Texas anymore, we're deciding on Arkansas. And what I find beneficial for those that have narrowed it down to Arkansas is determine what are the must-haves when it comes to your new location. If schools are a major factor for you, check out schooldigger.com, niche.com. Many other syndicated websites have their school ranking system that you can check out and see where the best schools are in the state. A little secret for you, there's a lot of them up here in Northwest Arkansas. If your deciding factor is where you can find employment, again, Northwest Arkansas would be a great option for you, but it also really depends on what industry you're in. Around here in Northwest Arkansas, Bentonville, Bella Vista, Rogers, Fayetteville, we have some of the best employment, trails, amenities, healthcare, and schools in the entire state. If you're looking around Central Arkansas, like Little Rock, Conway, and Bryant, they have urban conveniences, healthcare, and major hospitals. Over near Hot Springs, which is a little bit farther west, near the Ouachita region, you might find a little bit more lifestyle with lakes, retirement-friendly, and resort-type atmosphere. Up in northeast Arkansas, near Jonesboro, there's a strong manufacturing and medical hub. Near the River Valley and Fort Smith area, there's affordability at a slower pace of life. I would encourage you in this section to not only look at what's important to you in your motivating factor and where you want to live in the state, but also the cost of living in each one of those areas. Northwest Arkansas is going to be the most expensive area to live in the entire state of Arkansas, then around the Little Rock area, and then it kind of trickles down from there. Determine your needs and proximity to airports, family, medical as an example. You may be sitting right there and trying to decide, say, Anthony, we're looking in Hot Springs and we're looking in Bella Vista. Well, my friend, I would encourage you to do a home shopping trip. There's a difference between shopping and a home buying trip. Real quick on that. Home shopping trip is like window shopping. You're out, you're at the mall, you're walking around and you're looking in the window and you're saying, hey, that looks like a nice shirt. Those look like nice shoes. I'd like to maybe check that out someday. That's shopping. Home buying is when we're literally going into houses to make an offer. So it's very common for people to come to Northwest Arkansas and say, hey, Anthony, I'd like to see what the homes look like, what my dollar could bring at this price point with these features in this side of town. Can you show me a couple houses? Absolutely. When it comes to a home buying trip, Anthony's blocking off the schedule. We're going to figure out how we're going to get you in all the homes that fit your criteria within reason to make sure that we find you the best property to put an offer on. Which brings us to our next list is understanding the different housing types and what's maybe a little more normal here in Arkansas. You might be surprised to understand that even though we have around 40 tornadoes a year on average in Arkansas, there's not too many homes with basements here. Isn't that surprising? We have slab-on-grade foundations. Now, of course, near Bella Vista, Rogers, of course, in the hillier areas, you might find homes that have basements. And it's also a possibility you might find a home that has a storm shelter, either bolted to the garage floor, down underneath the stairway, or dug out of the garage floor for the storm shelter. What POAs or HOAs are here in Arkansas compared to where you might be moving from. I know that many of my clients that move from around the country, they move here and they're like, why is the HOA fee only $400 a year, whereas ours is $400 a month? Well, typically here in Arkansas, and specifically here in Northwest Arkansas, our $400 to maybe $800 a month is providing maintenance and upkeep for the neighborhood amenities like mowing the grass, upkeeping the pool, maintaining the pavilion or common areas. Whereas you might be coming from an HOA or a property owners association, for example, that takes care of your trash, mows your grass, shovels your driveway, and maybe has some other social benefits to it as well. Of course, depending on where you end up in the state, there are heavier pockets of new construction. Up here in Northwest Arkansas and around some of the suburbs in Little Rock, you're going to see a lot more concentration of new construction homes. In this process, determine if you want to live on a lake, if you want to live with a view, if you want to live on a golf course, if you want to live in the woods, in town, out of town. Last but not least in this section, please identify your non-negotiables. For instance, one time I had a client that had a grand piano and she said, Anthony, I will not move in a house that doesn't have room for my grand piano. It was an heirloom and I'm handing it down to my kids when they come of age, but I need a house that has room for that. That became their non-negotiable item, along with a few other things. They wanted to be in proximity to hospitals and shopping and things like that. But that piano had become the absolute non-negotiable. So every house we went to, you better believe we made sure that that grand piano could fit where they wanted it. Next on our list is meeting and selecting a realtor of your choice. Of course, you're watching my content. I know that there are other options here in Northwest Arkansas. And even though agents are licensed in the entire state in which you might be moving, here in Arkansas is no different. Arkansas agents are licensed for the entire state. They could operate, but they might only be specialized in one particular area. Me, for instance, my area of expertise is right here mainly in Benton County, Arkansas. I do get down into Washington County a little bit, but if you're looking for a home in Hot Springs or Benton or Jonesboro, I'm going to refer you to somebody else, but it's good to interview agents and brokers to understand how does their business operate? What is their history? What are some of their credentials? How long have they been in the business? How are they going to take care of you and your needs when the rubber meets the road? Before we move on to our next section, my friend, if you're considering moving to Arkansas, and specifically Northwest Arkansas, down in the comments is a link to my relocation guide. If you would consider moving to Northwest Arkansas, click that link, fill out your information, and consider that our first opportunity of potentially working together. Thanks for that quick commercial. Now, a couple other things. As you're choosing your realtor, make sure that they're providing you information about local nuances. Is this in a flood zone? What school district is this in? It may be very important as you're doing your home search. Whomever you choose, make sure they understand relocation and what you might be going through, and maybe with the emotions and the difficulties that you might experience when moving. I know for my family, we've moved multiple times. We moved here to Arkansas twice, but I know what that's like to be relocated for your job and also to do your own relocation and what that means to essentially start all over in a new place. That said, if finding an agent that doesn't understand what that's like, probably can't relate and might not be thinking like you're thinking when it comes to the costs or the investment or the time or what you're going through in order to make that transition. Number 5, of course, it should go without saying, but determine how you're going to be able to purchase this next property. Are you going to pay cash? Do you plan on financing? If you're retiring and then moving, do you have enough retirement income or enough cash to be able to purchase the home? That's a very short section, but consider your pre-approval from your lender or maybe a letter of proof of funds from your bank showing that you have the liquid funds available in order to pay cash for a property. Maybe you're an investor and need to do a 1031 exchange. Maybe you have a large amount of equity in your current home and you'd like to take out some of that equity from that home, called a home equity line of credit, a HELOC, and then use that as a down payment on a home here in Arkansas. Or last but not least, possibly a bridge loan. Needless to say, there's so many different ways that you can purchase a property here in Arkansas, but let's make sure we get that figured out on the front end and will help our process be so much more smooth. Plan your exploratory trip to Arkansas. When is that going to be? Is that going to be in the best time of year, or is it going to be in the worst time of year? If you're moving from Minnesota, or maybe you're moving from Texas, if you're moving from a climate that's drastically different than Arkansas, I would recommend coming during the best time of year. You know, it's funny, my family and I were relocated to Minnesota a decade and a half ago, and they took me to Minnesota when it was spring and everything was opening up. It was beautiful. Of course they didn't have me check out the area when it was 10 degrees outside and there was 3 feet of snow. That wouldn't have sold the area very well. That being said, as you're planning your trip to Arkansas, consider the season. What season are you probably most concerned about? If you have the ability, choose the season that you're most concerned about so you can see what is that season really like. We do experience all 4 seasons here in Arkansas, but not to the dramatic effect you might find, say, in Minnesota. We don't get 6 feet of snow. We only get maybe 9 to 10 inches of snow on average here in the northwest corner. And we don't have 7 months of summer and 100-degree heat like you might find in the southwest near Phoenix. Let me pause right here and back up just a second. If you're trying to decide on what region you're looking to move into, whether, again, maybe it's Little Rock area, maybe it's Northwest Arkansas, maybe you want to fly in and hit both of those regions on the same trip. While you're there, that's the time to be considering, how is life going to happen for us? Are we going to be in close proximity to the specialists that we need for medical? Are we going to be in the right school district? Are we going to be in the right region that makes the most sense outside of the 4 walls of our house? We can figure that out later. Figure out what region you want to live in. So do that exploratory trip to really understand what life looks like outside of the house itself, to understand that region first. Then we can figure out the house next. Number 7 is understanding Arkansas taxes, cost of living, and Arkansas insurance requirements. Where you're coming from, maybe in California, you might have fire insurance or earthquake insurance. We don't have that here. We might experience an earthquake, and I'm not saying the fires don't happen in regards to maybe wildfires. We are more susceptible to hailstorms and tornadoes. Compare your current state tax burden to what your tax burden might be here in Arkansas. Arkansas is one of the states that has a graduated tax bracket depending on your income level, so you might want to check that out if maybe your income's going to change when you come here to Arkansas. What do property taxes look like? There are states like Florida and Texas that have 0 income tax, but they might get you on property tax. If you're retiring or close to retirement, Arkansas is one of the states that don't tax you on your Social Security income. I'm definitely not a CPA, so always verify these details with your tax accountant from what your tax burden might look like wherever you're moving from to where you might be living here in Arkansas. Number 8, we touched on it earlier, is understanding Arkansas weather. When we lived in Minnesota, I needed a heavy jacket, gloves, a hat, and boots that I could stand on the ice even if I wasn't ice fishing so my feet didn't get cold. Well, I'll tell you what, now that we've been living back in Arkansas for the second time for about 5 years, a little over 5 years again now, I don't wear those boots as often as I used to. I used to wear them on a daily basis. Now I think I've probably gotten them out maybe 2 or 3 times a year. So understanding the weather not only helps prepare you for what to wear on a daily basis, but maybe your wardrobe is in all winter clothes because you live in the north. Well, here in Arkansas, let me tell you, it could be 60 degrees on Christmas Day, so you might not need that winter jacket, those gloves, that balaclava, or anything to keep you warm, even on Christmas Day, at times here in Arkansas. You do need to understand that in certain areas, there's a potential for flooding. So kind of backing up to the real estate section, talking to your realtor and making sure they understand where the flood zones are. Next on our list is obviously considering your lifestyle. Let's say you're moving from Colorado and you're trading in your Epic or your Icon Pass. Well, my friend, we don't have mountains around here to be able to go snowboarding or skiing, but you might want to sell your skiing equipment there in Colorado and buy yourself a mountain bike here for Arkansas, or maybe a paddleboard, or maybe you want to do hiking. I don't know what it is that you're wanting to get into, but understanding that your lifestyle might change that drastically, where you sell off whatever that sporting equipment is and moving here. I have many friends that they lived the lake life up in Michigan, and now that they're here, they rarely go out on their boat. Now, it's a little bit said to their stage of life with their family, but they rarely go out on their boat, so now they're paying for a boat slip over on Beaver Lake that they barely use. Most everywhere in Arkansas you look, we're going to have high-speed internet, and of course that you are going out somewhere that's extremely remote, I would encourage you to check out Starlink or check out some type of WhisperNet or satellite internet service. Those speeds are typically a little bit slower than what you might find with an actual fiber optic cable, but it is possible. We mentioned it earlier in regards to hunting, camping, fishing, schools, your lifestyle. What does that look like? And is the cost of that lifestyle different than where you are to where it is here in Arkansas? Wherever you end up, considering that as a factor might help with our next section. We had talked a moment ago about how you plan on purchasing the house you plan on moving into, but next on our list, we need to talk about planning financially for the move itself. And not just financially, but logistically as well. How are you going to get all your stuff from where you're currently living to where you're living now? For many people, me included, I've been relocated for a job before to where they covered everything. When I came home at lunchtime, about 90% of my house was already packed up, except for the big items. They had packed up everything in the house. Left in the morning, came home at lunch, it was packed up. Whereas if it's on your own shoulders in order to do all of the packing and moving and finding of trucks and storage units, those are things you need to figure out logistically. How are you going to get it there? Who's going to help you on one end or the other, or both, to help you move out of one place and move into the next? You might need to create a downsizing plan. Maybe you're moving from a 5,000 square foot house and you're moving down to a 2,000 square foot house. Maybe you're moving from a 3-car garage down to a 2-car garage. Of course, as you get closer, you definitely need to line up your moving trucks with your real estate contracts. Time and time again, I'm always making sure my clients have their moving truck lined up with their closing or a little bit overlap there, because what's the worst case scenario is you've closed on the house and your stuff isn't there. So you might be in a hotel for a couple days. Or your stuff's already there, but you don't have a house to put it in because you haven't closed yet. Very important to make sure we line up those time frames. Next on our list, it's never too late to start building your Arkansas team now. Even though you might be looking to make a move 6, 8, 12 months from now, find your realtor, find your lender, or consult with your banker. Go as far as looking for insurance agents, contractors, handyman, CPAs, movers, healthcare providers, school contacts, of course, if applicable, depending on your life and what you plan on moving for, and who's moving with you. Last but certainly not least, and kind of a bonus section here at the end of the video, is I would encourage you to make a first 30 days in Arkansas checklist. Now, you've already gotten here to Arkansas. Now you need to figure out in the next 30 days, what are the checklist items that you need to establish now that you're here? Items such as establishing residency so you can change your driver's license and get your cars registered here. Maybe you have a plan to shop for a new barber or hairstylist. Where are you going to get flowers? Where are you going to go to the dentist? Do you have a referral from your doctor wherever you're living now to a doctor here in Arkansas? Those are the types of items I would encourage you to make a first 30-day in Arkansas checklist. My friend, it's always a pleasure to put this information together for you, and now you know a little bit more about what life is like in and around Bentonville and Arkansas. Thanks for watching.